Yeah, next I'll just introduce Mukesh. He leads the Android team over here. Android is our most invested team over here. It's the biggest team here as well. I actually started off as an Android developer, then I moved later on to backend. So Mukesh has a lot of experience. He has 10 plus years of experience into building Android applications. He's done all kinds of things. He's worked into designing, he's worked into managing and anything. So if you have any questions in and around your Android or about your product management lifecycle or design, you can actually ask him. He's primarily going to talk today about career paths because that's something which we generally hesitate talking about. Is this something we shy away from? So yeah, I'll just introduce him.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mukesh. I lead the Android team here at SuperShare. I've been working, as Suraj mentioned, in the industry for the last 10 years. And I've not always been an Android developer for the whole 10 years, but I've been an Android developer for 8 years. But it took me some time to understand that Android was my niche. Android is what I wanted to do, and that's a specific reason why that is, right? So today I'm going to show you guys or explain to you guys how you can find your niche in the world of development, because frankly, coming out of college as a fresher, you get into the IT industry, you crack a few interviews, you somehow get in, right? But you end up in a situation where you get a title, junior developer, junior backend, front end, designer, whatever. You get a title and you're stuck with that title for a really long time, end up hating that title for a really long time, and your life is bad after that. So I'm going to help you guys avoid that situation by giving you an example of how I avoided that situation for myself. To do that, can you guys just show by hand like who are still junior developers here who have just got into the industry? By junior, I mean anyone below 3 years for me is junior, so. Okay, we have quite a few people, so that's good. Okay, so this talk is not just for you guys. I'll come back afterwards later on, once you find your niche, how you build on top of that to take you to the next step. We'll talk about that in a bit, right? So before that, let me start off by giving you an example of myself. I primarily started off as a desktop application developer. I used to make Java Swing applications. That was an era I worked with. There were no web apps. Web apps weren't a thing at that point. Quickly realized that's not what I wanted to do because the UI was really bad and I had a passion for UI. So I quit development. I went into backend, trying to figure out, because I hated the UI, I thought I'll go with backend work. So I went into backend work, did a little bit of PHP because that was the thing at that time. Facebook was booming and everyone was like, oh, PHP is the next big thing. I jumped into PHP, learned a little bit of PHP, learned backend, but then I always missed design because UI was my passion. So I went like, okay, I'm getting out of backend. I'm jumping in UX and UI. So I became a designer. I was like, let me do some designing. Let me learn how to be a designer. I started learning the basics of design. You guys are really lucky nowadays. You have Figma, you have Sketch, you have all these awesome apps to build designs. We didn't have that. We had shitty websites to build prototypes. We had shitty apps to build. Pen and paper was what I used to do mostly. Quickly realized I missed coding as well when I became a designer. I was like, damn, now I miss code. What do I do? This confusion just kept happening again and again and again. So then, around that time, Android was just creeping in. There weren't a lot of Android developers. Android was just getting out of the gate. This is back somewhere into 2012, right? So Android is just getting into the gate. So I was like, let me take a look at a few Android apps. Let me see how they work. I saw the Play Store, got a few apps. I was able to afford an Android phone because they were cheap, dirt cheap back then. Like 3,000 phone was like a flagship there. So I got the Android phone, a flagship, installed a 3-inch screen, installed the app, and I was like, oh, these apps look really bad, but they function well. And I have a passion for UX, and I can easily replicate these functionalities. So that's where I jumped into Play Store. I got my Play Store account, $25. I had to beg my dad to give me that and get a Play Store account. And this is back when I was in college, right? So I was experimenting at that time. So begged my dad, got $25, got a Play Store account, started working towards building the exact same apps that were there in Play Store. I was just replicating them with better UI. Got a few users, got a little traction, got a name in the community a little bit, and that's how my Android journey started. But to get to Android, I had to go through a bunch of different roles. That is why it's important for you people to understand as well that just because you broke into the industry, that does not mean that that defines you or that's your role. that you want to do probably for the rest of your life. You need to experiment at least a little bit to figure out what your niche is. Today, in 2022, can anybody guess how many estimated developers are there around the world? Anyone? Sorry? That's too much, I would say. Yeah. So today in 2022, we have an estimate of 25 million developers around the world. And the projection for 2030 is 45 million developers. So if you have 45 million developers, there's a lot of competition in the market. You need to be at your very best in order for you to perform well, right? And do something in your career. Now, how do you perform well? When do you perform well? Does anybody know? Okay, the most simplest answer, I'll get to it. Sorry? When you know something very well. Awesome. You're enjoying it, exactly. That's spot on. You were good, but that's spot on. If you enjoy what you do it better every day. I enjoy doing Android. That was for me. So even till this date, I wake up every morning excited to come to work. I know we have a hybrid system, but I still come every single day to office because I'm excited about writing code with leisure. Obviously, at home I have a wife, I have a kid, so it's very difficult to work. So I come to office because I love to write code every day and get away from the rest of the world. That's secondary. But yes, and I still continue doing that even after I'm done from here. I go home and I still write more code. Not for SuperShare, for freelancing, shits and gigs and open source work. So I do that because I love to write Android code, and that's how I've been for a while. Now, even on the weekends, you can see me writing code. That's just my thing. That doesn't mean I don't have a life. I do a lot of gaming. I still have a life. But yeah, that's the reason why you need to find your niche. It makes your life simple, and when your life is simple and easy, you are more confident. When you are more confident, you stand out from the crowd. When you stand out from the crowd, more opportunities come your way. That's the simple formula to being successful in any field that you are in, right? So that's your go-to mantra to be able to find your success in any career path that you pick. Now, it's turning off. That's okay. So yeah, like I said, this is the reason why you need to find your niche. So that's why I say anyone who is still below 3 years of experience, you still have enough time. For me, I took a very radical path. For me, the whole journey was in 6 months to a year, where I went from being a desktop application to backend to front end. I just had the liberty to do that. I wouldn't say quit your day jobs and start exploring, because that's dangerous. You should never do that. Sit, relax, work with open source technology. Find a lot of open source projects. Try to see if it works for you. If you like it, move ahead. Try freelancing. Freelancing is a great way to figure out what you want to do, and at the same time, great way to experiment as well. So let's say this is the reasons why I said you need to find your niche. Once you found your niche, let's see how you find your niche next, right? Like, you know why you have to find your niche, but let's see how you proceed further. How do you find your niche? The first step is identifying your interests, your passion. For me, I was a little dumb. It took me a long time. I went jumping from code to design, design to code, and backend and front end. I tried everything to figure out what I was interested in. So similarly, find what is interesting, what you're passionate about. Find how things make you tick, what challenges you love. Find that, build on top of that. And this is a repetitive process, by the way. It keeps going in cycles. Don't just find ones and you're like, okay, now this is my niche. Don't get easy. It keeps evolving, right? Second, identify a problem to solve. With my case, I saw the Play Store. There were a lot of indie developers there, no big companies, no big giants doing anything apart from Google and maybe a few other, right? But majority of them were indie developers. So I took their indie apps, I stole their ideas, built on top of that, and made a better app. That's what I did. So I was trying to solve a problem where UX was bad. I was trying to improve the UX and provide them the same functionality at the same time. Third is research your competitors. Like I said, for me, they were all indie developers like myself trying to build something. Exactly, do the same. Do the research. Don't go for big shots like, Phil Lackner or Jake Warthon. Don't try to attack those guys. Find your competitors, find people at your level who are doing something similar. It could be your friends, it could be your family, it could be your colleagues as well. Find your competition, try to do better than one up them. That's what we do. Everything, test your idea, play the waters, play the fields. If you get an idea that works for you, settle down with it, move ahead, or else repeat the process. You keep repeating the process till you find something that you truly love working on. Any questions? By the way, you guys can stop me anytime, ask me anything you want. I'm not the guy who takes Q&A at the end. Just putting it out there. Anyone? Nothing? Should we proceed? Yeah. Sorry? Mm-hmm. The money. Profitability, point 4. You have to make sure that you're getting paid well. Right? Just joking, just joking. So I was privileged enough to study in a school called Bishops. For anyone who knows, who have been in Bangalore, knows that it's a very privileged school to study in. So I was introduced to computers really early. Like my first grade, I was learning logo, FD10, drawing houses. So I was really introduced to coding really fast. So by 5th grade, teachers thought I should be a software engineer. And I proved them right, like, yes, I can be a good software engineer. So yeah, coding was always my love. I always loved coding, and that's why I went into gaming as well, because nerds, they stick together, band together, yeah. So yeah, I hope that answers. It's the real passion, that's all that was there for me, nothing else. And less profitability, yes. All right, so let's say you found your niche. You start working on your niche. You spend a couple of years working into it, right? Like you don't want to just keep finding niches, that's it. If you keep doing that, then you're risking your career. Once you find your niche, work towards it, spend your time. Like I said, that thing was a loop, right? You keep doing it again and again till you find yourself. Once you find yourself, you find your competitors, you try to one-up them every time. And if you're really happy with your niche, it's easy to one-up your competitors. There's not much of effort that's needed there. So let's say this is for everyone who's about 3 years of experience, right? You've got to a senior role, you've started working towards building your career, you've got to a good spot, maybe team leads as well. Now what? You can't be team leads when you're 50, right? Frankly, you can't be. Or you can be. There are those very, very rare developers who end up being team leads even at 50. They're like god tier developers, right? But they're very rare. They're like 1 in a million. So if you aspire to be that 1 in a million, awesome, you can go ahead and try that. But what if you cannot be that 1 in a million? At some point you come to a person who is always one-upping you. So how do you move ahead with your career from there? Any thoughts, any ideas? True, that's one thing. It's get out of your comfort zones. You become a senior person in that role. You've become a team lead in that role because you are in your comfort zone. Everything was easy. You built up your reputation. You built up your world around you. No one can challenge you in that. So that's where you become comfortable. Now, the next thing is you one up yourself, get into a different role, get out of your comfort zone. If you stay in stagnant water for too long, you're going to sink. You need to move up. So how can you find where you need to move ahead from being a team lead? There are 3 different roles that you can pick up. One is a product-facing role. You need to identify this by yourself. Whether you want to go into product, are you more passionate about product? Or are you more passionate about consumers? You can be a consumer-facing role. You can pick a consumer-facing role. Or, like you said, consultants. You can be a supportive role, which I frankly prefer a lot. I'm a mix of all 3, so yeah, I'm just a weird ball. But yeah, there are these 3 different major roles. You can obviously pick different kinds of, there are other categories that you can go into, but these are the most 3 common things that developers tend to fall towards. So when it comes to product roles, there are a few roles that you can take. One is quality assurance, and this I don't mean QA. Quality assurance is a part of engineering. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about quality assurance as in assuring the quality of the product. you're not writing codes or you're not writing test cases. You're making sure what features you're building, they're quality features, what market research is needed, you're doing all of that to make sure that the product is good. Similarly, you also have Scrum Master, which is a very common role that people end up going into after being a lead for a bit. They go into Scrum Masters because they are a more people person. They want to manage the product features that are coming down in the line and how you want to delegate the work to the team, right? That's one. Third one, product managers. This is a very common route for developers, where if they have worked on a product for a really long time, they try to move up the ladder, get into products, start making product decisions. Most times team lead unknowingly do end up making product decisions, which is what happens at SuperShare as well. But yeah, one thing the people I'm pretty sure all developers hate is designers, because they make our lives difficult. But I hope no designers are here, but yeah, that's one route that you can end up taking. If you're tired of writing code, maybe start building UI, start building the UX. It cannot just be UI, you can also do UX designing. Yeah, product owners also are there, yeah. There are a bunch of other routes. These are just a few examples of the most common ones. Then if you're more into consumer side of things and you want to talk with the people, interact with the people, that's where your consumer facing roles come in. So you can take different routes here as well. The first one is writing tech blogs, which I do. You can go to mukeshsolanki.com, shameless plug. You can go there, check my blogs out. It helps. But yeah, tech blogs, you can write tech blogs on behalf of your company. You can write tech blogs in general as well for your personal growth as well. It helps you in two different ways. People challenge what you think, so that in turn grows you to be reading more on tech, reading more on whatever topic you're discussing. Technical recruiters, something we all hate, because most of the times for technical recruiters are very stagnant. They're stuck in a time frame and they're asking the same old boring questions that are no longer relevant. But if you're a developer and being a tech recruiter at the same time, you're going to be asking more cutting edge, more bleeding questions. That's what we have again here at SuperShare. We tie that in very closely. Most of our interviews are done by proper developers who are working here day in and day out. So we know what we want. It's better for the candidate, it's better for us as well in the end of the day. Freelancing is something I do personally for a long time. I've been doing it throughout my whole career, and I would recommend every single one to do, because it helps you experiment. Things that you cannot put into your project on a production version, right? You can do that in freelancing, because freelancing is prototyping, right? Anyways, and you're not getting paid as much. So you can go all out, start experimenting, start trying out stuff.
Some have limitations for freelancing, about the policies. Should not have it.
Policies as in, like, do not leak the code?
Contract. Job contract. Yeah, contract. And you are in a permanent role with some company, you can't do very much.
Moonlighting. You mean moonlighting as a clause? Yes, there is a moonlighting clause, but I wouldn't go into that because the HR is looking at me. There are ways around it. We'll discuss about that later on in person. Lastly, you can go into supporting roles. If you just want to have a chill life, relaxed, this is for you. After 10 years of hard work, if you feel like, yes, I want to just relax, I don't want the hassle anymore, this is your role, supporting roles. Yeah. DevOps.
But I don't agree for the support role with DevOps.
No, support, I agree. It's not a chill life, but what I mean is DevOps are here to support the engineers, right? It gives the liberty for Suraj to just build features and just forget about it. Whereas John is the one who's struggling and trying to make sure everything is still up and running and not destroying the whole product that we have. So yes, these are supporting roles. By supporting roles, I don't mean just have a chill life. It's more of you're helping other people out, right? That's what supporting roles are. DevOps help out engineers in production, making sure no one's breaking through the security. We get DDoSed quite often, so John takes care of all of that for us. Site reliability engineer. Site reliability engineer is a person who's only called when shit hits the fan. Right? You are in production, everything worked fine, but when you're in front of the client, everything broke and everything's gone. So this person steps in there, he comes in, fixes things, and is out in half an hour. That's his job. Lastly, consultant. This is the most chill job you can find. All you have to do is sit with the company, tell them how to do stuff, and you're out. That's it. So these are the different roles for senior folks who can, transition from being a developer to something else. And that's my talk. Any questions? Yeah.
You told us stand out from the crowd. Like, what are the things you like as a developer or as an Android? What are the things you done? Are you told that you are a born programmer?
Yeah.
Born programmer, then you have gone more than a stage of build data. Current.
Yeah.
Then what you done to stand out from the crowd? Or what the activity
So.
you done from childhood or job side which has done?
So when I said stand out from the crowd is what helped me stand out of the crowd. I'll give you an example of that. So I figured out I wanted to do Android towards the final year of my college. I spent 1 year working before that. My whole second year was working. I was working with a company who didn't pay me a single penny. I was working for free just for experience and just to understand how the IT field works. And that's where the experimental phase was happening, so I didn't care about the money at that point. But yes, once I figured out my niche, I stuck onto that. I started open sourcing libraries, SDKs way before I even actually had a final job. That helped me stand out really from everyone. Even till this date, the SDKs, the libraries that I built are being used by thousands and thousands of people. I'm talking about 50,000 downloads a month from the analytics that I get at least. So 50,000 downloads a month from the libraries that I've built. And till this date, and I put it in my resume, and I go to an interview, and there are 10 other candidates, they take a look at my profile and they're like, oh, this guy's really standing out from the rest. So you do something with your passion, build on it. Money should not be the incentive there if you want to really stand out. Open source doesn't pay me, not a single penny, at least not till now, but I'm hoping that changes soon. Wise more, basically, or even actually writing code. So it depends. Like if you're more leaning towards Android, you found your niche. That's your Android is your niche, right? You start working with it, and by the way, you shouldn't stop there. Even after you've done Android, keep exploring, because I didn't stop after Android. Although I didn't mention it, after doing Android for a bit, I went into iOS development, just trying out that. I went into web front end, tried HTML, CSS, played with that. I went back to Node.js and then finally settled down on Android. Say like, yeah, this is where I want to be, right? So keep exploring. Even if you think Android is your niche, try a few more things. Maybe you find something more attractive. But if you found Android is your niche, then you need to start brushing up on everything that's new on Android. And what's the greatest? Kotlin. Java is dead. Java is dead, yeah. Sorry? Yeah, web agenda is always React Native because they want more control on your phone. So, yeah. Any other questions? PW, progressive web apps. They're a thing, but again, explore. If you like it, move towards it. If you don't, you can always switch back to native Android. Native experience is the best, what I say. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah.
Sometimes it is not just about the passion, also we see, what's going in the market. So when it comes to the UI, you say the front end, back end, also we have a full stack, maybe like end-to-end development. So according to you, what is best?
So being a full stack developer is always good because you can, it's like jack of all.
But whatever the amount of the knowledge.
That's what I said, jack of all. I didn't say king or the ace. It's jack of all. You're a jack of all, which is what a full stack developer is. But the good thing about being a full stack developer is, and this exercise of finding your niche is, you end up being a full stack developer like myself. I do Android at SuperShare a lot, but apart from that, I'm still doing back-end work. I'm still doing front-end, and I do a little bit of UI and UX. So I've still been doing that. So I'm still a jack of all. I can't call myself the king, but yeah. If you have a full stack experience, which you build with this exercise, you're never going to die. Your career is never going to die, because if, let's say, tomorrow Android is dead, there's a new OS, let's say Fuchsia picks up, you still have something to offer to the table. And the more skills you have, it's better for the company. They can't let you go because you're more valuable to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I do open source software development in my free time. So my question is basically like, how do you reach out to people, say that hey, I have this. So open software, you are everything basically in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
So like I work, I get some stars and this thing, I get a level, then it just stagnates for a long time. So how do you reach out? How do you do that?
That would be a marketing question, but okay.
I don't know. That's why you are the.
So I'll tell you how I market my Android libraries and SDKs that I built, right? So back when I started building libraries around 2016 and all of that. So at that point, not 2016, way before that as well actually. There wasn't any platform. Still today I have zero experience with marketing. It just works out for me. I don't know how, but I have zero experience in marketing. But I'll tell you how I got my library out. So there was this website called Android Arsenal. I'm pretty sure all Android developers are pretty aware of it. So Android Arsenal is a marketplace for all libraries. All you have to do is give them the free thing. So I gave them the free option. I saw a few stars roll in, and I was like, okay, this is good. Then I pushed it on LinkedIn. A few people liked it there. I was like, okay, this is good. Why the libraries that I worked on took off is because I constantly kept maintaining them. Even though there weren't any issues that were opened by the public. There weren't any, blockers or anything that people were raising concerns with. But the blockers that I faced, I still kept updating them. A new framework came out. I have to update migrate my library to that framework. I kept doing that even though no one was asking me to do it. I just did it out of passion. And somewhere down the line, I think that helps up. A lot of times what happens with open source projects is once you get a few stars, your passion is dead. You're like, okay, अब तो ये famous हो गया है, अभी इसको जाने देते हैं, right? But if you still keep working, it beats all those other libraries out there. And use all the SEO you can. Like GitHub is now like a social platform where you have topics, you have tags. Use all of that to your full potential. Yeah.
Thank you for organizing this event, and thank you for the amazing talk. I really loved being here, and I connected to a few folks from my town as well because of the event. Yeah. My question, thank you for leaving us with too many thinking points for the day upon which we can ponder upon and think about. And I'm Punita from Udaipur. If people don't know me, I'm just introducing myself. My question is, how do you get your first freelancing client and eventually many more?
That's what I was going to ask as well. And let me broaden that question a little bit, because I think this is one thing that in our conversations I found was pretty unique about you, which is you freelance actively, and this is something that I really like and we encourage. But your reason for freelancing is, I believe, goes beyond money. It's about something else. And can you speak to a little bit about why freelance as a developer, which is, by the way, quite rare. I think designers freelance a lot, developers not so much. Yeah. So how do you why do you freelance? How do you go about finding the right kind of work? Is it bite-sized? How do you balance it with the day job, so to say?
Yeah. Okay. So my go-to mantra is I spend 9 to 6 here, and then I go home, spend 2 hours on my freelancing gig, and then play 2 hours of games, and then go to my family. My family thinks that my gaming is my stress buster. That's just a makeshift story that I put in place so that nobody argues at home. But yeah, so getting my first freelancing gig, right? That was the first part of your question. It's very difficult. You cannot just go out in the market saying like, hey, I'm going to charge $10 an hour, and this is what I provide. These are my services, and reach out to me. No, that doesn't happen. You need to build yourself. You need to build your name first. I got my first freelancing gig for my dad's reference. He was a businessman. I was making desktop applications. He's like, billing software bana de, and I was like, bana diya. And it got sold to a few people in the market. We made a few bucks, but that was it. For the longest time, that was it. It died there. And I was wondering why people bought that software from me. And I quickly realized that it was because of my dad's reference. My dad has been in the industry, in the business that he's working in, textile, for a really long time. We had a business for 60 years, so whatever he says holds value. If whatever I say didn't hold any value at that point, nobody would have bought that software from me if I would have said that, ye kharid lo, billing ka software acha hai. Nobody would have bought that, right? So build yourself, build your social presence, be active on LinkedIn, be active on Medium, write articles. When you put out all these articles about, the knowledge that you have, people reading that most of the time are folks who are looking out for good developers. They'll reach out to you, offering you either a full-time job or offering you freelancing gigs. But when I have a full-time job already, I usually deny full-time, and I tell them, and I counter-offer them saying like, hey, I'll charge you peanuts, give me that freelancing gig. The reason charge them peanuts, don't charge them what you're charging, in your full-time job, because you're not working that long, right? Money should not be the medium for you. I'll tell you, my first freelancing gig paid me $5. The first gig that I ever found after putting out my name for a while, putting out my open source work for a while, putting out a little bit of my blogs here and there, being active on LinkedIn, my first job was worth $5. That's it. And that $5 was just because I wanted to get the job. That's it. I quoted myself way below everyone else. And that's how you get your freelancing gigs. Once you get your freelancing gigs, once you've done them well, show them off. Ask the people to review you. Show off the work. Like if you go to my repo, my website, you'll see that I've worked on around 20, 25 different projects. Products, I should say, not projects, products. And most of those companies I'm not even in contact with them. And if you see my LinkedIn, you'll see my experiences. I've only worked with 4 companies. So how did I work with 25 different products and 4 companies? It's just freelancing gigs where they paid me shit money, which I didn't care about. The reason why I freelance and why I encourage all developers to freelance is because you get to experiment, you get to learn. If you want to stay ahead of everyone else in the crowd, you have to experiment with the latest stuff. If you're content with what you're doing right now, your career is going to get stagnant. You're not going to move forward. How I experiment and learn, most of the things that we build here, I've already experimented with something else on one of my freelancing gigs. I use that as knowledge platform. Like I said, freelancing is usually prototyping, right? It's not someone who's making $1 billion product and asking you to freelance and paying you peanuts. That'll never happen the case. They'll buy you full time. The reason why they're freelancing is prototyping. They just want to show some product to the client. And that gives you the liberty to go all out, build the latest frameworks, build the latest architectures. I've tried out MVI to realize I hate it. It's not the best, right? And we stuck back with MVVM. So that gives me leverage over here in my full-time job to then be able to discuss the topic when it comes to what architecture we should follow for our project. Should we go with MVVM, which is a few years old, or MVI, which is relatively new, right? So it helps me make those decisions better and back them up with experience. That is why I freelance, and that's why I recommend every single dev should freelance. Like I said, moonlighting is a clause in a lot of companies, but then there are ways around it, which I don't want to disclose right now. Because, yeah. Sorry? Yes, moonlighting is attached with your full-time employment.
That's the HR speaking, by the way.
Yes.
In case anyone.
Yeah, in case everyone's wondering, yeah.
Guys, we are running short on time because we are out of the hour. But if you have any questions, we can
reach out to me.
Yeah,
we're going to be networking anyway, so you guys can just reach out, talk,
yeah.
and have a chat. So that's my time. Thank you, guys.